Back to Nighttime. We have a great show planned for you all today. We're going to go over the Boise State recap, talk about our most impressive players of the week on both sides of the ball, games we're looking forward to, and we have a special guest at the end of the show to go over our primetime picks, so stay tuned.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated chance, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
Welcome back, everyone. Week 1 of college football is in the books, and also week 0 if you want to count that too. But we had a great slate of games this past weekend, but I think the best game this weekend by far was UCF Boise State. Maybe there's a little bit of bias in that. I don't know. But Boise State ended up losing to UCF this week, 36-31, and UCF had a 21-point comeback after being down 21-0 in the first quarter. It is actually tied with our largest home comeback in school history. Taylor, how'd you feel about that game?
It was a great game to watch. I mean, 2 days in the bounce house, can't really beat that. It was a night game, primetime game. Saw great things from both sides of the ball and things I'm looking forward to for the rest of the season. I think that all players had a great show out, more so in the second half. But I think Gus is showing that he has a promising future here at UCF. And I think that there was standout players on both sides of the ball, and I'm excited to get to that.
One last thing about Gus Malzahn before we get into our top players of the week. I just want to say that Gus Malzahn did a great first job coaching his first game here at UCF, especially since he stuck to the game plan. Being down 21-0, we stuck to running the football. We stuck to getting Dylan Gabriel out of the pocket and letting him making plays and run the football too. Props to Gus Malzahn. But our main segment here for this show, recapping the game, is our offensive and defensive players of the week. So I want to go ahead and start off with Taylor and who's going to be our offensive player of the week.
So my personal offensive player of the week, if you told me last week, I probably wouldn't agree with you, but it's Isaiah Bowser, the transfer from Northeastern. I think that he did a great job. He had 36 rushes for 172 yards and a touchdown. I think he was a standout player with blocking, running the ball, and catching whenever he needed to be there. He was there, and he made big-time plays and really helped this team get back into the game when they were down 21-0. And I think that he has a promising future. He didn't do great at his past school, but now at UCF, I think that he's showing out, and he is going to do great for the weeks to come. What about you?
No, he's definitely a product of the UCF offense and a Gus Malzahn power run game. I mean, at Northwestern, he dealt with injuries. Whenever he transferred over to UCF, Gus Malzahn brought him in with open arms and knew that he was going to be a great player for our team. And 172 rushing yards and 1 touchdown in an opener is definitely something to be proud of, especially since it's a great group of 5 team in Boise State. But my offensive player of the week personally is going to be Jalen Robinson. He had 6 catches for 140 yards and a touchdown. He was all over the field. It was one of my keys to victory last week. Get Jay Flash the football. And that's exactly what Gus Malzahn did. We were sticking him in the slot all game. We caught him on a couple fade routes. We also caught him on a couple slant routes and drag routes. He was just all over the field, and he was the guy that made plays. He was the guy that made plays with the ball in his hands, and he was a big reason why we won this past game.
No, I completely agree, and we touched on him a lot last week about how he is going to be a big-time player for Dylan. He's going to be his number 1, and we really did see that. He was able to gain so many yards after catching the ball and really push through, breaking so many tackles and impressive catches for his touchdowns. Moving on to the other side of the ball, defensive player of the week. So my defensive player of the week and also AAC's defensive player of the week is Kalia Davis. He had 6 tackles, 3 of those were for a loss. I think that he can play multiple sides on defense, and I think that he is a product of this big-time defense that really did stand up against Boise State. And I think going into this week against Bethune-Cookman, obviously a lot less easy of a battle, but I think he has up to maybe 10 tackles, and I'm going to give him 3 sacks for this upcoming game.
Wow, you're going to give Kalia Davis 3 sacks in this next game? At playing the nose guard position.
Yeah.
I really don't think that Bethune-Cookman's really going to be throwing the ball that often, especially since they're mainly a running football team, but That's for talking about Bethune-Cookman.
Okay.
My defensive player of the week is actually not a specific player, but it's a position group. It's actually the only position group that played good for UCF's defense all weekend on Thursday night, and it was our defensive line. Big Cat Bryant, he didn't stick out on the stat sheet, 3 tackles and 1 tackle for loss, but he was in on almost every single tackle, and the leadership that he brought to that defensive line was great. Ricky Barber, our transfer from Eastern Kentucky, he was one of the key players that we were watching out for at transfer portal. He had a sack in this past game and 2 QB hits, and then Kalia Davis obviously had 5 tackles and 3 for loss. And he ended up being AAC Conference Player of the Week on the defensive side of the ball. Boise State had 24 rushes for 49 yards. That was an average of 2.9 yards per carry. Let that sink in, especially in the modern college football era. Boise State rushing for 49 yards in a single game, and especially the way that modern college football is, that is very impressive. Especially looking at UCF's defense last year, we would have been giving up 150, 200 rushing yards a game to a Tulsa or Tulane. So giving up 49 rushing yards, 49, is very fantastic.
Okay, so I'm going to probably disagree completely with you on this one, because for improvements for this next game, I think that the defense needs to improve. I think they struggled with one-on-one tackling. They gave up way too many yards on first and second downs. They were 4 for 14 on third downs, which is great against Boise State. But moving forward, don't give up the big-time plays on these first and second downs. They need to get more in the backfield of their opposing team, and the safeties and the backs need to do a better job. You talked about how it was a great defensive team, even though we were picking defensive players of the week. So sorry to tell you. But I think that the defense struggled, and I think that going into this next week, there will be improvements. We're going to work out the kinks from the past week for BCU, but I don't know. I don't think the defense was that great. They did have a great comeback in the second half, but giving up 21-0 against Boise State, you shouldn't really get down and have to fight your way back up. Like, if they're a good defensive team, they should stand their ground in the beginning of the game.
That was definitely a result of our defensive backs, though, not as much the front seven, because our cornerbacks, I mean, I don't know what kind of defensive game plan we had for passing the football, but we were really falling for play actions on the defensive back side of the ball. We were really selling out for the run game. And our cornerbacks were playing 5-7 yards off. They're playing such short coverage, and they're running slant routes, hitch routes, out routes, 5-yard outs, and just allowing easy completions for Hank Bachmeier. But right as soon as the second half rolled around, we started pressing a little bit more, and that's when Hank Bachmeier started to struggle.
Yeah, I agree. So is that what you're looking forward to seeing as an improvement this week? What would you like to see going forward?
Oh, my improvement is to see Dylan Gabriel play 4 quarters of good football. Dylan Gabriel really struggled in that first and second quarter. I mean, he was able to run. He was able to run out of the pocket. He was able to get some runs off, but he wasn't really able to find open receivers. I don't know if that's just because it was a first game in a brand new offense in a real game, but I need Dylan Gabriel to step it up a little bit. I mean, he had 2 interceptions on Thursday, especially that horrible one in the first drive of the game. But, I mean, he had a great second half, don't get me wrong, but I need 4 quarters of great football for Dylan Gabriel, because that's going to be the key to us winning a conference championship is him.
I agree. I think he needs to step up in these primetime plays, especially if he wants to be able to run for the Heisman this year, get any type of votes. He did say that the first interception, the ball slipped out of his hand. I don't know if you can really say that for the second interception, but I do agree. I think that your quarterback should lead you strong throughout the 4 quarters of the game, and I think he did struggle a little bit. But moving forward into the game against Bethune-Cookman this week, obviously it's kind of a cupcake game. We were talking about it beforehand, but I think this is the opportunity, like Coach Gus said, that we're working out the kinks from the last game. There was defensive struggles, offensive struggles, and now's the time to really show out. I'm looking forward to another night game in the Bounce House. That's hopefully not going to take 2 days to complete. I think that it's going to be an offensive show out and let these new time players come in and make big plays. And I think that a team like Bethune-Cookman, we're going to get the opportunity to do just that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, this game is just going to be a tune-up game. We're going to try some new things on offense. We're going to try some new things on defense just to see what works and what doesn't. So, I mean, after this commercial break that we're going to take right now, we're actually going to bring Camden Mowry on, our special guest, and we're going to talk about just week 1 of college football.
Welcome to the HTF Hot Wings Challenge. One of you guys actually do hot sauce like regularly?
No.
No.
It's like the least black thing I do.
Oh, wow, okay.
I say Johnny goes first on this one.
I agree.
No, the Buccaneers are going to play the Washington football team.
That can't happen.
It will happen.
I'm terrified.
No, I really hate it.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. No. You're wrong. If it wasn't for Kanye jumping up on stage and doing that, I'm gonna let you finish, but no one would know what it was.
Nitro's a dump truck. And if you don't know what I'm talking about,
Why is Nitro thick?
I don't know how many squats I need to do to get up like something like that, but I will do it.
Oh! Oh my God!
Baseball, obvious reasons. Babe Ruth, if you want to go currently. I feel like that's just like a thing.
he jumped off the wall to catch the home run. We made it through all the way to the end. Thank you for joining us.
I'm never doing this again.
It was rough.
Welcome back to KnightTime. For this next segment, we have a super special guest. We have Camden Mowry. Camden, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Kyle Taylor, it is great to see you today in studio. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Thank you very much, Camden, for coming on. Well, we have, this is the reason why we brought you on, Camden, because you're a big college football fan. Obviously, that's why you're on our show. But we had a huge Week 1 slate of games this past weekend. A lot of good games, not even just the Boise State and UCF game. Taylor, well, I mean, what was the game that really stood out to you most this past weekend?
The team that definitely stood out to me the most this week was the UCLA Bruins against LSU. They did play a great game against Hawaii, their Week 1, but it was Hawaii. So coming in to this LSU SEC strong team that just won the national championship 2 years ago, yes, they're in more of a rebuilding period. Their quarterback Johnson's not that great, but I think they had a great show out both on offense and defense. I think the running back pairing between Brown and Charbonnet definitely showed out, and their tackles, their cornerbacks, everything on defense really worked well for them against Johnson. They were in the backfield the whole time, and I'm excited to see what else they're going to do for this season because they really had a good show out against LSU. Camden, what about you?
Well, I do want to say UCLA did play great, but the team that I was most excited to see this weekend was Penn State. They went into Camp Randall, and it was James Franklin's first win on the road against a top 15 team. Their defense dominated when they needed them the most in the first half. Wisconsin had back-to-back drives where they got down inside the 10, missed a field goal, got a block actually, and fumbled. Also, Graham Mertz had a QBR of 18. You get a 39 QBR just for spiking the football every single down. So the defense stood out. Jahan Dotson looked great with over 100 yards receiving and a touchdown. Big things for Penn State.
Yeah, no, Penn State definitely made the plays that they needed to in order to win that football game. I will say, though, Wisconsin was getting some drives going near the end of the game whenever they're only down by 6. But 2 huge interceptions by Penn State in the red zone was really the difference in this football game. And props to James Franklin. After a horrible last season, they bounced back big time with a big top 15 win on the road. So props to you, James Franklin. Props to the Penn State Nittany Lions. And actually, I do think that they're going to make a lot of noise here in the Big Ten this season when a lot of people did not think so. But my most exciting team to see this season, or last week to see, was not. My most exciting team that I saw this past weekend was, in fact, Taylor, go to you real quick.
Okay, no big deal. So I think that going into the other side of the spectrum, our most disappointing team of this week, I'm going with the Louisville Cardinals. I mean, I was kind of excited for the Louisville versus UCF game, and not so much anymore. I think on the field and off the field, the coaching staff and the players looked mopey. They looked like they didn't know what they were doing. Their quarterback was scrambling for plays, and it just was not a good show out against Ole Miss. It was pretty much Ole Miss primetime. That was it. Nothing good was happening. Their receivers could not find space. Their O-line was doing a terrible job, and their coaching staff started making transitions way too late into the game. If you're getting blown out in the beginning, you need to make the changes then and there. And if there's not changes on that side of the football team with the coaching staff, then this team is not looking forward to a good season coming out. And I'm pretty sad to say that I was excited for the games coming up for them, but not so much anymore. Camden, what about you?
Well, sticking with the ACC, my least exciting team, or the team I was most disappointed in, was the number 10 ranked North Carolina Tar Heels. I thought they were ranked too high from the start, and they really disappointed against Virginia Tech. It was a road game. It's a tough environment. Sam Howell, though, Heisman candidate, threw 3 interceptions. They were 2 for 12 on third downs. This is not a football team that is going to get as far as people thought they would. I just thought they were disappointing.
Yeah, no, Sam Howell was very disappointing this past weekend. 3 interceptions. I mean, he was a Heisman contender coming into the season. Everybody had so much hype for them and North Carolina. Mac Brown was supposed to bring North Carolina back. And after this past week, going into Hokie Stadium, it was just so bad. I'm so sorry, North Carolina fans, but your team is not that good. And also for a team that's really not that good, that had a lot of hype this season was Oklahoma. Come on, man, it's Tulane. 40-35, you're up 40-22 in the fourth quarter, and you almost blow it. Spencer Rattler couldn't make plays whenever it mostly mattered. I mean, come on, man. You give up an onside kick. You give up 2 touchdowns at the end of the game. And Tulane was honestly half a yard away on a 4th down and 13 on a quarterback scramble from honestly winning that football game. Oklahoma, I'm very disappointed in you this weekend.
Dang, that's upsetting. So with the first AP poll coming out for this college football season after these games, people are kind of upset. We see teams that are too high, too low, maybe some teams that got snubbed out. There's UCLA, Virginia Tech, some of these new teams that are now in the top 25. Personally, I think that Notre Dame is way too high in the poll. Yes, they beat Florida State, but it's Florida State. I think it was a battle of 2 okay teams. They went into overtime, and they pretty much got lucky with Florida State missing the field goal in OT. I just think that their offensive line was not good. Quarterback skills were not good. It was just a show out of okay. I think they honestly would have lost if Mackenzie Milton was in. They should have started him from the beginning with Florida State, but I have to say, Notre Dame, you're way too high in the poll this week.
You're not getting a lot of credit to Florida State because they actually did play it really good. They played a really good game. I know it was at home. Notre Dame didn't really look that great either, but FSU put up a big fight. They were down, and they came back and almost won that football game. Jordan Travis did not play a great game, but right as soon as Mackenzie Milton comes into that football game, everything changed. The crowd got back into the game, and the offense was actually able to move the football. That offensive line did not play great, but the running backs made plays, Milton made plays, and actually that game went to overtime for a reason. Florida State, I think, is a top 25 team in college football, and they proved it on Saturday night, and they're going to make a lot of noise in a struggling ACC.
Camden, what do you think about the polls this week?
Well, I do have to agree that Notre Dame is ranked too high. They moved up for barely beating Florida State, and if it wasn't for an 8-minute stretch in the third quarter where they scored 21 in a row, I think that Florida State would have easily won this game. But the team that I think was left out was Michigan State. They started out with a bang at Northwestern. Kenneth Walker III ran for 264 yards and 4 touchdowns. His first play was a 75-yarder right to the crib. And Northwestern's no joke. They made it to the Big Ten Championship last year, so it was a great win for Michigan State. I believe that they should be ranked.
Can we talk about Georgia moving up to number 2? That's a very big jump from 5 all the way to 2. You jump Ohio State and you jump Oklahoma just by a win over a super bad struggling Clemson team, because that was also one of my most disappointing teams this week was Clemson only putting up 3 points. But Georgia's offense didn't look that good either. I mean, I don't think that it was an impressive win because the only points you put up were a field goal and a pick 6. JT Daniels didn't look great. Zamir White really didn't get a lot of holes to run through. I mean, Georgia didn't look that good either. Do you guys really think they're a top 2 team in the country?
No, I don't think so. I think it was a snooze fest on both sides of the ball for both teams. But I don't know. You picked Georgia last week, so apparently you really think that they're going to do a great job this season. They did beat Clemson, but let's just see. I don't know about number 2 either. What about you, Camden?
Well, I think it was bold for the AP poll to move Georgia above some of those teams that also won. Usually we see a lot of rigidity in where they rank these teams, but I'm happy that Georgia jumped all those teams. I think they deserved it. I think they deserved the number 2 ranking. Their defense was phenomenal. I mean, the offense obviously wasn't too great, but let's just give credit to the Clemson defense. And I think that Georgia's right where they need to be.
Oh, man, JT Daniels missed a lot of throws. Like easy 5-yard outs, easy hitch routes. JT Daniels was throwing high, throwing left, throwing right. JT Daniels could barely make a throw in that game. I mean, he averaged like 6 yards of completion. That is not the way that you want to win a football game. Georgia got very lucky in this game, and I'm glad I picked them. I'm glad I got that on my record here on Primetime Picks of the Week, but that was not an impressive victory at all, man. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I agree. But moving into week number 2, what is some of the games that you guys are looking forward to? I mean, personally, for me, I'm looking forward to Iowa and Ohio State, and we're going to come back and talk about our primetime picks. We'll talk about that game when we come back right now after commercial.
I'm in charge of the meeting this week. So you know what we're going to talk about? Basketball. The second thing we're going to talk about this week is basketball. Okay? And the third and last thing we're going to talk about is basketball.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I want to quit. Can I quit? Take that.
Look at the screen. What are we talking about this week?
Basketball.
Welcome back, and it's time for everyone's favorite segment here on Nighttime, and it's going to be our prime time picks of the week. So what we're going to do a little bit something different this week. We're going to go ahead and say the game that we're going to pick, like everybody's game they're most looking forward to this week, talk about it for a minute, and then we'll go ahead and give our picks. So I want to go ahead and throw it to Camden first. Camden, what game are you looking forward to most this week?
You know I got to go with Oregon coming in to the Horseshoe, going at Ohio State. It's going to be a top 15 matchup. It's going to be the first time since 2019 that the shoe is back at full capacity. I think that this had big implications on the rest of the year. If Kayvon Thibodeau is healthy for the rest of the week, then I think this game's a lot closer. But as of right now, I'm really excited to see what these two teams can do this week.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that game, and we'll get on to the scores in a little bit, but I'm looking forward to Iowa versus Iowa State. It's a rivalry game, so I think with this top matchup, I think it's going to be a battle of two very strong running backs, and a rivalry game always makes it more entertaining, and players kind of stand out more and show up. So I'm excited to see what will happen with both these teams, and I think that'll play a big role in the polls for next week. What about you, Kyle?
It's a game that's a little bit under the radar. I brought up a game that was a little bit under the radar last week. That's kind of just what I want to do because everybody likes their mainstream games. Obviously, we got to talk about them. But an underrated game this week is Appalachian State-Miami, guys. I mean, Chase Bryce is now the starting quarterback for Appalachian State, former Clemson transfer, played one game while Trevor Lawrence was hurt 2 years ago, and he's a very good quarterback, and he looked very composed last week against Eastern Carolina, and they have a two-headed monster running back, both of them rushing for over 100 yards last week. I think this is going to be a lot closer game than what people think, especially after Miami just fell off the map last week after a horrible 44-13 defeat from Miami. I think this is going to be a very interesting game. I want to see if De'Aaron King can come back and have a good game.
Do you think App State's overrated?
No, I don't. I think that they're right exactly where they need to be. They're receiving some votes for the top 25, but they're not in the top 25. I think they're exactly where they need to be.
All right, we'll see. So moving on to our picks, we're going to start with Iowa and Iowa State. I'm going with Iowa on this one, 20-17. It's going to be a close game, and I think with this rivalry matchup, I think it's going to come down to the wire, last couple seconds, and maybe a field goal will win the game. Camden, what about you?
I'm also going to agree with you, Taylor. I think Iowa's going to take this game. They looked great against Indiana last week. I know Indiana's trending downwards, but Iowa State did nothing to show me that they are ready to be back where they were last week. I think Iowa will take this 27-23.
Iowa State almost had one of the worst FCS losses in Week 1 history, only winning 17-10 last week. They did not look good. Their offense was stuttering. Their offense did not look consistent at all. But Iowa proved that they are a very good offensive football team, and they have a very good team, and they're going to make some noise in the Big Ten this year. So Iowa, they're going to win 24-14 this week.
Okay, so moving on to Ohio State and Oregon. I think Ohio State's O-line has kind of been underrated this season. I think they definitely did struggle against Minnesota, but I think it's going to help them win this game against Oregon. I think Oregon's going to go up, and Ohio State's going to pull away in the third and fourth quarter. I'm going to give it to Ohio State 34-24.
I'm going to go ahead and go against you on this one, Taylor. I'm going to go against Camden, too, because I know that Camden's an Ohio State fan, so we already know who he's going to pick. I think Oregon's actually going to pull out this football game. Watching that whole entire game, I know that Ohio State played a great second half, but I don't trust C.J. Stroud just yet. Yeah, they played Minnesota, and he played a great second half, but now they have to go against a very strong Oregon Ducks defense. I think that the Oregon Ducks defense is actually the strength of their team this year, which is completely different from a lot of other Oregon teams in the past. So I actually do believe that Oregon is going to win this game 28-21. Oregon is going to go on the road and get a W.
Kyle, let me go and counter your counter, okay? Ohio State played a way better game than Oregon played. What did you see out of Oregon that you like specifically?
Defense, man. I don't care if it was Fresno State. They played a great defensive game. They held them to less than 300 yards of total offense. But the offense was stuttering, but they played a great second half. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Oregon this football game, and you can't change my mind.
All right, I'm going to go Ohio State, 45-27. Ohio State is 9-0 all-time against Oregon. History will repeat itself in the horseshoe. Kayvon Thibodeau is probably going to be out. He's a top pick, maybe even the first pick. But Ohio State, C.J. Stroud's going to get back on track. Chris Olave is the best wide receiver in the country.
Chris Olave is very good. I will give it to you on that one.
Okay, well, Kyle, I think you're giving me the go-ahead because I'm down 2-2 right now, and I think that you're giving me the opportunity to go up again in primetime picks, picking these teams. But now it's time to move on to App State, Miami. I think that Miami, they definitely had some good things that got hidden in the blowout against Alabama, but it is Alabama. You're supposed to lose like that, especially if you're Miami. But I do think they're going to win against App State, and I'm going to do 30-27 App State winning over Derek King and the Hurricanes.
Really? You're going to pick Appalachian State over Miami?
No, I did not mean to say that. I said Miami.
Okay, good, because I'm the one that's actually picking Appalachian State to win this game. Because Appalachian State is a very good football team. They are very underrated. They are they're a bottom-tier top 25 team every single year. And Miami has not shown me anything from last year to this year. I get it that it was Alabama. They had 10 tackles for loss. But besides that, they don't have anything. Derek King has not shown me anything to prove that he can win a game. Not even a game. And I think Appalachian State's going to win this game 31-21. I think they're going to dominate the run game. They're going to dominate the line of scrimmage. And Chase Bryce is going to make the throws that he needs to win this football game. Go Mountaineers.
Well, I do think that Miami did struggle. Nothing looked good against Alabama. But whatever does look good against Alabama, I mean, you can ask Ohio State last year in the national championship. I think that Miami will pull off a victory, 31-23. I think that their season will plunder. After the last 3 ACC teams that played against Alabama in the opener, they've all gone downhill. And I think Miami will do the same, just not this week.
Okay, so Bounce House. There's a game on Saturday against Bethune-Cookman. I think it's going to be a blowout. UCF is going to win 49-3.
Take the over on the spread. Take UCF to cover the spread. UCF wins 54-7.
I got 41-7 UCF. I think they're going to run the ball a lot, but they're going to get the job done.
All right, well, we'll see. We're so excited to come back next week for Nighttime. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated chance, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap.